Well, hello, everybody, and welcome once again to another exciting episode of the Freedom Link. Scotty Lopez and myself here to take you through a myriad of different topics, none of which we really had planned because we try. We really do. It never works out that way because then what ends up happening is something like just what happened before we went on the air tonight. And that is all our plans went sideways once. Well, once Joe Biden kind of did more of his stuff. But there's a background, there's a backstory to all this that nobody is really aware of, and it is both dubious and ingenious in nature, isn't it, Scotty?
Oh, indeed.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you want to. Of course, I mean, was anybody surprised that more stuff was going to be found? The dribble of just corruption and all kinds of stuff always kind of leaks at a nice steady pace, and at some point people are like, well, are you really surprised
No,
anymore? I
I'm,
mean, or
I'm not surprised.
right,
I'm not surprised.
and a lot of this, I think, is to get the public used to it. Get us acclimated
Get
to
used to
the
what though? But what are we getting used to that we're not already used to? That's what I want to know. Like, what is it that we don't?
right. I mean, just the
Okay.
absolute levels of you know corruption and two-tiered
Yeah.
justice that we have in this country, obviously, and um, the more you just kind of put it out there and people just kind of see it, the more that people just kind of accept it, and
Mm,
that's the thing, and it goes on both sides, where
it
you
does.
see both parties do things that are, and people in high positions do stuff that's corrupt, and then it comes out and it never leads to anything. There's like
No,
an
it always gets
uproar,
swept
and
under the rug.
yeah, there's an uproar for a couple of weeks or maybe a couple of
What?
months, and then it just kind of fades away, goes away, and nobody's ever
You
held
did it
accountable
again.
for
You
anything.
did it again. You did it again. So that is a great thing to talk about tonight too. Is how many times have there been these uproars, if you will,
Right.
only to have them swept under the rug? Maybe we'll just do like we'll go digging. Because by the way, folks, we don't have anything. This is kind of on the fly, right? But it's very relevant. Scotty just made a great point. Is that every time you have something like this, and oh, there's an uproar, and oh, there's a special counsel, and oh, there's this, and all there's that, and then whoosh, nothing. All of a
Nothing ever
sudden,
comes
it
of it.
just goes away, right? And nothing
Right.
really comes of it. You're right. Nobody really is held accountable. The only people that are ever held accountable are people like us, normal people, people that do not. Well, let's just say this: people in that kind of position of power typically um, got there through dubious means. We can prove that tonight. We can prove that tonight. But yeah, money of course. Money is we hear it said many times the root of all evil, but you just don't really understand how evil, and just the damage that is done without even a thought. I mean, even a what they do, it's just disgusting. So I got up on the screen here. This is just a news flash. Woof! I mean, this is it. Additional classified items found in Biden's Delaware home during Justice Department search, attorney says. So it looks like what happens. I know it's sad. It's very sad. Look at him. He's very sad.
Mm.
There is, and well, he's, you think he's sad. He's putting on a good face, but he's not sad. He doesn't care. That's why, now he's to the point. He's going to be 80 years old, right? And he's done everything he's supposed to do. I'm just going to return him. It's okay. Never mind the fact that I had all these Chinese nationals going through my house, uh, and the millions of dollars that we took in, and all this kind of stuff. Never mind that. It was in the garage, next to the Corvette, hidden in plain sight. It's okay. It's locked up. It's in the garage. I okay, so that's one. And of course, he doesn't really understand. Well, I mean, what can you do? You got to remember this: Joe Biden has never held a real job in his life, not one. I mean, it's been politician, career politician, straight on through. And when he's not a politician, the few years off that he had, well, guess what he was doing? He was making money with Hunter. And Hunter, surprisingly, was paying $50,000 a month on a property that appraises for about 2.3 million. And if you do the math on what the average rent would be for a house that's $2.3 million, it's not $50,000 a month. So there was already crazy stuff going on in that regard where they were setting things up, setting up these workarounds to make things happen. It's no coincidence that there's classified documents there. I would bet that if the DCA or um, any sort of like FBI investigatory body went and did a top-down review of classified information practices, I bet they would be horrified. I bet that this is so systemic, it's not even funny. But don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Scotty.
Right.
So
and
sad Joe
also,
here. I just want him to look at us while we're doing this. So yeah, go ahead. He's very sad. If you notice,
very,
he's
very
not
sad.
but he's plotting. You see that? That's the plotting face. Yes,
is
very
he
much.
sad or is he brooding? That's the question.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna show here very shortly just how smart he really is, or at least he surrounds himself. But it says here 6 additional items, including documents with classified markings, were found in President Joe Biden's Delaware home after Department of Justice officials searched the residence on Friday. This, according to the president's personal attorney. The documents at Wilmington, Delaware home appear to be related to his time as vice president as well as to his tenure in the U.S. Senate, and were found after Biden's counsel offered full access to the premises as the department investigates his possession of classified materials. So, yeah, so they find the first stuff, then they find more, and now they found more. And it's interesting because it's a private residence. That this is the tricky part. Because it's a private residence, there's no visitors list per se, especially because he was not the vice president, and there is no Secret Service, as far as I know, for the vice president lifetime. It's only the president. So now, I'm sure there's some sort of something. I'm sure somebody's got a Ring camera somewhere, but I'm just saying that it's not necessary or required at a private residence.
Right.
For their handling of
What are you talking about? Go ahead, Scotty.
Right, and that's also part of it too. He was vice president. Why did he have those documents to begin with? And
classified documents.
They don't.
Right.
Wow, the brain sounds very passionate.
Coming in. Brain is hot to trot here. Yeah, she's very, very hot to trot tonight.
Sorry.
Yes. but you know what? They don't typically audit. They don't do that. It's not something that they do. However, the whole Trump thing kind of started this off. And well, there's some interesting stuff here. So let's just go. But he's not stupid. Let's put it that way. And I'm going to say why. Because he was smart enough to make Kamala Harris his VP. So they're not going to take him out. They're not going to do that. They have to let this guy stay. But is Kamala Harris who we think she is? Or is there more to Kamala Harris? Check this out. Anybody remember this guy? Huh? Anybody? Do you know who this guy is? Well, this guy It's a WWF wrestler. James Kamala Harris dies at 70. This is in 2020. Now, I have a feeling that he didn't die. I have a feeling that he is, in fact, the vice president of the United States. And
you think
an
there was
ass
some
kicker to boot. And an ass kicker to boot. Yep. Anybody remember him? I mean, look at. Now think about that right there. If you saw that coming at you, you're not taking out Joe Biden when you got that. How do you do that? And I think it's funny. I do. I think it's funny. Rest in peace. Ha ha ha. Yeah. No. Put your sister wig on and let's go. You're vice president now. And the only thing you got to do is you got to watch this guy because he's a little bit burnout, let's just say. And, you got to hold his drool cup and make sure he doesn't do anything. And look at this. Already failed. Got classified stuff everywhere. Hunters doing lines in Delaware and all this other stuff in this house with Chinese people going crazy. I mean, you hear all these things that they're saying out there. And some of it is just, some of it's off the wall. But I got to be honest with you. Is there in fact any difference between what Trump did and what Biden did? The only difference is, according to them, Scotty, was that Biden was forthright and cooperative, whereas Trump said no, or whatever. But
well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, there should be an equal, right, an equal application of the law applied to both,
right?
Regardless, and we're not seeing that. So just that in itself, is kind of a glaring thing, and but also, I mean, if you want to, nitpick some of the differences and whatnot, I mean, first of all, Biden was vice president. He wasn't even president when he took these documents, and it also stated in there that possibly he may have taken some of these when he was still a senator, right, as well as when he was, or something like that. But either way, I mean, yeah, he was vice president, and the fact that he had these documents for 6 years.
6 years, you say?
Trump didn't have those documents for that long. Like,
well, come on now. Does it matter though? But it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter. But 6 years is a long time to be holding on to documents that a lot of people could have possible privy to within that 6 years.
Especially the people that we see that have passed through or associated with.
How many people have gone? How many people? How many people have gone? How many people have gone through that residence and had an opportunity to take a little sneaky peek at a lot of those
probably
documents?
Like house parties and stuff going on there. Think about it, right? I mean, Hunter was a party animal,
right? And so I mean,
was it like that Billy Madison moment where like they're all passed out in the backyard at the swimming pool? He and his little entourage. Maybe it's like that. I don't know. But all I do know is it's a bad look. It's one that could be taken advantage of. However, when you've got Kamala Harris as your VP, you ain't going anywhere. So that was a pretty smart move on his part. However, I do believe that everybody's right, that this is their way of pushing him out. Just because, hey, look, dude, you're too old and stale, Jack. And sorry, but you got to go. Okay. So you just say it. Hey, look, okay, 4 and I'm done. 4 and I'm done. I'm going to hand it off to who? What do you think? Who are we handing it to?
Oh, I don't know. That's the question.
Who
do they got over on that side? I mean, we've got Gavin Newsom, who looks like he wants to take a shot at it. I think he's prepping himself to be the the
You think
golden
so?
boy of the
I mean,
I think
really?
so. I think so. He's got that arrogance and narcissism to him to where I think he would think he would have a shot or something. And
So Bill says man shell, right? I mean
yeah, right,
Michelle Obama.
right. That's what I was about to say. And then you've got these rumors going around that Michelle might make a crack at
Well,
it.
I mean, it could be, but I don't personally, I don't care. First of all, because leaders are
Right.
selected; they're not elected. But I have to say that that would be an interesting thing, only because it would rival the thought process of the Clintons, right? Which was, boy, when Bill Clinton entered office, it was a pretty rough go for a while for him. And then the Lewinsky scandal comes about. That got even worse. But the tail end of his presidency in a handoff to Bush, it wasn't that bad. As a matter of fact, I remember filling up my car one day and saying, "Holy smoke, man! That I was driving to the ship, and it was cheap. It's like 77 cents a gallon. It was I want to say like 1998, 77 cents a gallon. Man, you know what? The Clinton years weren't all that bad in hindsight. But yeah, of course they were. But you get that feeling, right? So then these people that are kind of like, well, they're thinking, well, the Obama years, gosh, we yearn for those, which is funny because what do we say? It's conditioning, right? So
Right.
each one gets excessively worse and worse and worse while they're telling you how good it was and how excellent it was. It wasn't. It was terrible. I said to myself, Scotty, it could never get worse than Bush. Are you kidding? It got worse than Bush. And it has. It's gotten
Right.
progressively worse. A lot worse. Yeah. But
And the
that's
reason,
what they do. It's like nostalgic.
right? And that goes back to what I was saying. They've been conditioning the people to accept worse and worse, to where now we're at the point to where politicians are sitting here trying to convince you that they're, less corrupt than their counterpart when there shouldn't be corruption at all, right? It's like, well, look, what I did wasn't as bad as what he did. Well, we shouldn't even be having a conversation about any of them doing bad things and us having to pick which one was less worse than the other, right? So, we've already devolved down to that point to where that's where the bar is at. That's the acceptable level of the type of people we elect into office and we allow to run the country.
That's right.
And so
and look at who runs a country. Who runs a country? Is it actually our non-representing representatives, or is it
right? And when I say run the country, I'm putting that in quotation marks, right?
Right,
So,
of course.
yes.
And they don't really run it. Here's the way it is. It's been this way for a very long time, very, very long time. It's the money trust. That's the name of that at the beginning of the 20th century. I choose to use that only because it is the second coming of that, and they utilize different terms to propagate the same behavior and the same things, and let's just say like business practices that they did 100 plus years ago. Only now they call it environmental, social governance, ESG. Things like that. They all work in tandem. They all work together. It's unbelievable, So, Davos, foreign minister of Slovenia, demands that nations respect the rules of the world order. So, what is the world order? You see, the United States was never, ever meant to be world order. We were never meant to be part of a world order. We were meant to be different. We were meant to be independent. Let's just put it that way. And right off the bat, we get tied up in the war between the British and the French. And it causes a lot of consternation, especially within Washington's cabinet. You've got Federalists, or what they called Federalists. I never bought into that. Who wanted to side with Britain. And then you had the Jeffersonians, or the Republicans at that time, that wanted to side with the French because they were revolutionary. That's what we did. Therefore, we must support them. And you had that, and then you had a group in the middle that says, no, I want to be neutral. That's what this is all about. We don't want to be involved and tied with that. And then Madison, of course, comes and he writes, basically about neutrality, trade with all, ally with none. There's a reason for that, because you get pulled into stuff. Take a look at what's going on in Ukraine. That's what all this is about. Respect the rules of the world order. What's the rules? If you have a country, or you represent people, and you want to live, or your people want to live one way, doing one thing, you should be able to do that. And no one or other country should force their will on another. It never ends up happening that way. That's respecting the world order. Says Foreign Minister of Slovenia, Tanja Fajon, signaled her submission to the globalist agenda with a declaration or demand that sovereign nations must respect the international rules of the world order. Now, she's a social democrat, part of the Party of European Socialist, and former member of the European Parliament from Slovenia. She was slated for a discussion on global fragmentation, which seems to be the underlying theme of the event in 2023. Remember, this is no more, this is an echo chamber, just like, say, some certain social media groups. It ends up being just it's a big circle jerk. I hate to say it that way, but that's what it is. It's a circle jerk.
Right.
They all get together and they talk about this, and it's all about disinformation, and it's all about and Joe Fox in the chat room, BlackRock. Yeah, BlackRock. They're getting creamed right now because they're the ones that, between them and foreign investors, have driven the rent market up, housing market, just through the roof, because they're buying all these homes and then driving the price up because demand is high. They're artificially inflating the market. Just different sectors that have not been breached before, probably out of decency at one point in time. Then that goes by the wayside. They start buying up all the housing, jack it up, right? And we're screwed. You can't rent a house. You can't afford to live. It's a cost of living crisis.
And their PR department obviously knows that their name isn't is not in very good standing right now, because all of a sudden you're seeing BlackRock commercials on TV. I used to never see commercials for BlackRock on TV, and now all of a sudden they're doing these like little things to look how awesome we are.
It's ridiculous.
Invest in BlackRock, and they're trying to make themselves sound like that they're this for America country and or company and all this stuff.
And this is where Orwell and guys like Brave New World, gosh, what I'm trying to remember his name. I'm just drawing a blank. Thank you, Huxley. They were visionaries because they kind of were privy to a lot of the planning that went into this. Now, there is a master plan, and the master plan is all about control. It's all about order. That's why you hear these key words. And when I say control, of course, population control is one of them, but control in every facet of everything, rewilding most of the earth, that's a huge thing. Having these large megapolises and aerotropolises. So you have basically concentrations of humans in very standardized housing, and Everything is tracked. Smart cities. Take a look at like Masdar City in the UAE. You can look at Neom and how that's coming along. You want to take a look at aerotropolises like Memphis, Denver International Airport, things like that. That's kind of the baseline. They're putting the foundational pieces in place. But then the control mechanism comes. Why? Because people can't afford housing. They can't afford to live. The solution's going to be no problem. We'll give you all the food you need. We'll give you a place to live. We'll give you clothes to wear. We'll give you entertainment. We'll give you all that. But you're going to give us 12 hours a day working because you don't have to worry about doing laundry. That's done. Got robots to do that. You're going to have AI that does a lot of stuff. There's going to be a big, big, big change, but it's not going to be something that's going to free humanity because it could work both ways, Scotty. You could either free humanity or you can enslave humanity. It's probably easier to enslave humanity at this point because all the work's been done. You know?
Right. And all you have to do is look to China, right? And the way they seem to really love the way they seem to really love the way that China does things, and they really want to implement that framework around the globe, you know.
Well,
and
think about a lot of the documentation or laws or executive orders that center around relocation of family, right? Over in Germany, or not Germany, over in China, they have whole cities built, and they're ghost cities, and they were done for a reason. The problem is they built them too fast, and they weren't ready for that yet. But it's coming, where all of the people in the rural areas are going to get pulled in because robots can do all of the farming. And it's getting close as far as that's concerned, especially when you start introducing AI and autonomous robots. Now, all of a sudden, that's more of reality. Boston Scientific just came out with a great update on their Atlas robot. Now, that thing has to be programmed to do specific, like a choreographed effort every step of the way. It's not autonomous. Not yet. It's learning, but it's not autonomous yet. So very clumsy, I guess you could say. But think about what goes into something like that, where every move, when you step forward, right, you're putting pressure on your leg. All of that pressure at every joint has to be tracked by that robot to know how it has to balance and how much force it has to counteract. There's a tremendous amount of work that goes into that until you get ChatGPT. Now, all of a sudden, it takes seconds. Holy crap. You know, and I've been playing with it, Scotty. I will tell you that. I've been playing with it. But this is the scale of things that I'm talking about where we have no clue. We're in uncharted territory right now. Because if you think about it, even some of the most earth-shattering advancements had time to for people to get accustomed to things. It was slow. Like, for example, motors. Motors were invented the late 18th, early 19th century, right? They were really put into production, 1860s, Industrial Revolution, and on forward. We still use electric motors today, right? But it took a long time to phase them in. So you write ChatGPT. Yeah? Okay. You write ChatGPT, and now all of a sudden, you have an AI chatbot that can pass the medical exam, that can do architecture, as long as what it has in its database or what you're asking for is from 2021 on back, because its database starts or ends at 2021.
Right.
Okay, so that, but I've been asking it all sorts of stuff and it spits it out. Now you got to do a lot of work to fix it, you know, especially like with the code, but damn, it's pretty damn impressive for this thing just to spit that out. They're now saying that ChatGPT might be able to diagnose Alzheimer's or see it before it know that you're predispositioned for it.
Yeah, maybe it can ask you a specific set of questions, and based on your replies, it can crunch the numbers and determine the probabilities of the likelihood that you might have something cognitive going on or something like. It's
amazing,
crazy.
dude.
You know?
It's amazing. So think about that. Think about that. Think about how fast ChatGPT can have an instant impact on economy. You're talking about every programmer, most writers of content on these social media channels and all of these independent media or even mainstream media. Let the chatbot write the article. Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story. And we have seen that more and more to the point where some experts believe that by 2025, 90% of online content will be AI generated. So then the question is, how do you know what's real and what's not? And then the people that programmed the AI and gave it its database, its data set that it learns from, that it pulls from, how do you know that it's not slanted or biased? Because we've never seen that before, right? Yeah. I don't know if anybody's been to Facebook or, well, now there's Twitter, but Twitter pre-Musk. And you tried to say naughty things. Boy, oh boy, you got your butt kicked. It is being very the pace at which this is happening is unbelievable.
Oh no, doubt, man.
I just don't know, man. I when I say uncharted territory, think about this. It hasn't been since the flood, pre-flood, that this technology in any way, shape, or form have existed. We know some form of super technology existed just from the evidence that was left behind. But damn, I mean, when you talk about magnitude of scale in a compressed time period like this,
Right.
dude, change in that level.
The amount of technological advancement that has pretty much occurred since the Industrial Revolution, right? And then rapidly accelerated after the Second World War is astounding. I mean, we've never seen anything like this in human history, right? I mean, if you think about the grand scheme of things and how long humans have been around, there have been stretches of hundreds and hundreds of years where literally nothing changed. Right, as far as technology, right? I mean, going from what, like, say, 700 BC to,
well, how long was a horse the main mode of transportation for human beings?
Right, going from 700 BC to, like, say, 900 AD. What really changed from that point? Everybody was still using horses and chariots, and right. The main way of doing things nothing really changed. There was not much technological advancement to really make these huge changes, and just within the past 150 years or so, we've seen this just radical changes that change humanity in a lot of ways, and the way we operate. So I mean, it makes you wonder. I mean, like you said,
it makes me wonder if humans are capable of accepting change at such a pace. And the reason why I say that is because you can tell it's really messing with people. If you think about the way society, this is a big change for humanity, because and this was one of the central points in the documentary that Aaron and Melissa Dykes, myself did, called Obsolete, that
Right.
talks about the obsolescence of human labor. And no, they're giving you subtle, they're trying subtle things, right? Because remember, people don't like change. So they have to do it subtly. So they start this universal basic income, right? It's all centered on money. People don't get it. When this goes down, the way I think it's going to go down, money's obsolete. How can you pay for anything if you don't have a job? Right? If AI starts to take out all of the jobs, if robotic advancements, and it's happening fast, start to phase out manufacturing jobs, machining jobs, services, what is going to be left outside of the people that fix the robots? Thank God I'm one of the people that fixes the robots. But I'm just saying, what happens?
We're
You don't have
luckily
money.
yeah, I mean, luckily I guess we're safe, I guess, because I do software troubleshooting and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But outside of maintaining the infrastructure of the robotic workforce, I mean, what really is there left to do, right?
But that's my
And
point. It transforms all of humanity. So then the question,
Right.
Scotty, is how do you manage that?
That's the question, and that's that's where we can see things taking a pretty dark turn, because
Yeah.
what do you do with all of these people who have nothing to do?
So now you see
And
the problem. Now you see the
right.
problem that the control freaks have, and it's freaking them out. And it's
Hmm.
freaking them out because not only do you have this transformation of society going on, it's such a when I say foundational type of change, it is. You're talking about money's been around since creation, a little after, but when the fallen ones taught man how to use all of the, gold and silver and everything else, that kind of kicked it all off. We've been on that system basically since that time. So that's a big change for humanity. Now it can go down a couple of ways, right? You could do universal basic income, where you have a government that just makes up credits or something out of thin air and charges your whatever. In this case, in Masdar City, it's an RFID chip, and everywhere you
Right.
go, it knows where you're at, and you buy food with it. It also tracks like your refuse. It tracks your waste, your everything. It tracks every facet of your life. It helps you, like if you uh, call the for fast food or something like that, but you just went to the doctor and you have high blood pressure. It'll probably tell you not to do that because, see, as the state is responsible for your well-being or that entity, you're costing, or you are a drag, or using the resources of the collective. Therefore, you are
Right.
not having fast food. You're eating alfalfa sprouts. And
Right.
that's how far that can go. China's proved it out.
Exactly.
So
and
that's
and that's why I said, that's where things start to take a dark turn, because the way these people think, right? They're running a company, right? They have the mindset of running corporations that want to reduce costs as much as possible and run
be as
as
efficient as
efficient.
possible, right?
Yes, as efficient as possible, and they're gonna crunch the numbers. They're gonna ask Chat GPT or whatever AI system, that they put their faith into, right? Because you're
That's
dealing.
pivotal.
Right, and you're dealing with these people that are already, like with this thought process of transhumanism and taking humanity to merging with machines, and trusting these AI systems to make all of the decisions for everybody and all of that. And they're going to crunch the numbers, and they're going to be like, how can we make this system run more efficient? And it's going to spit out, you know what? there's a lot of useless waste that
A
needs
lot
to
of
be cut.
excess, a lot of excess
There, yeah,
drag on
there's a lot.
society. Yeah,
Yes, there's a lot of there's a lot of money being spent
extras.
keeping keeping things afloat that don't need to be there, and so
Right.
maybe if you just cut this out of the equation and
As long as you don't
tighten.
go down the Soylent Green road and start making people crackers. See, now that right there kind of really, that would be going down a really bad road. I
Right.
and I do like social credits. There's that. You have that whole behavioral system, Scotty. You have that
and
measure of control.
and that's why things like that 500 million number that you saw etched on the Georgia Guidestones, that's why that's so important, right?
Right.
Because
It's manageable.
it's a lot more
It's
manageable
manageable.
to yeah, exactly. So
But you made a great point. And what your point was people, especially the control freaks, are going to put their faith in the AI. It's going to do amazing things, and it's going to do amazing things amazingly fast, to the point where, and it's already starting. You've got people that are starting churches for AI, and the logic and the progression of the way things are going, I totally see how they're getting that way. I get it. Whatever. Like I always said, you want to worship a sunbeam toaster, knock yourself out. But AI is a lot more than that. Now, these chatbots show that there's not really that much time before we get to a general intelligence, in my humble opinion. I just don't see it. I mean, the way things are progressing so fast, general intelligence is not that far off. There's some people that are saying now 10, 20 years. I don't know. Especially if you start employing these AI type of machines to improve themselves, to solve these problems. You're going to see answers to plagues, long-standing disease be eradicated by these AI type of technology.
you mean these things are going to be performing miracles, Joe, that people
Miracles, yes. Yeah,
will
yeah,
stand in
that's
awe
right.
of and be like, wow, look,
And
this
it's
is the
already
solution.
happening.
Right,
Just go on ChatGPT and ask it to write something for you, it will blow your mind. I mean, because you're like, are you kidding me? Really? Anything? Just there it is. Write me some HTML, no problem. Oh,
right.
I got this CNC machine. I need a program for. No problem. Oh, by the way, here's the medical exam. Oh, passed it first time. No problem. Damn. I mean, it's unbelievable. It takes humans 8 years to pass that test, oftentimes more than once, and this thing did it in about 20 minutes flat. If that. It just, and the only reason why is because it kind of types out like a teletype, because so many people use it at once. So
Right. It's been down quite a bit lately because just the load of people that are messing with it, and that's what's even crazy. It's learning even more because now look at how many people it's interacting with,
right?
And that goes all into the data set because it learns based off its conversations it has with you and all
now,
that
does
stuff.
That sound a little bit dubious, right? Now think about this: you put it out there for free, but what is it really doing? Did they really put it out there for free? No. They're capturing all that data, and that thing is getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And all I can say is we may be feeding the beast and we don't even know it. It could be Skynet and we don't even know it. We're just feeding it, and then the next thing it's going to be like, that's right.
I mean, it's crazy because people don't realize how much they're feeding AI in general when they interact on the internet anyways, right? Like anytime you got to solve those little captchas, click the picture of the fire hydrant so you can get to the next page, right? You're teaching a Google AI what a fire hydrant is by giving it human input to improve the data sets, That way when they use Google,
obscure little thing, right? What an obscure little thing, like you just said. people never realize that, but that's what you're doing. Joe
Right.
Fox, look at this. I got to show this. What a great movie.
Oh,
Maximum
fantastic
Overdrive.
movie.
Oh,
Fantastic
dude, I
movie.
love that movie.
I
I'm
do
going to
too.
watch that movie at some time here soon because that movie was, damn. That's all I
The
can say.
the 18-wheeler with the crazy clown face on the front of it, whatever.
When the
or,
ATM started spitting money out, whatever, I was like, yeah, okay, now we're talking.
Pop machine was like doming people with pop cans and killing them. It was pretty funny, dude.
Yeah,
It was a great movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So seriously though, then you start looking at like these ordered societies because that's what's going to end up happening. Look at China has at this time an AI managed society for the most part. You think about
Right.
it, even down to the microphones and the cameras on the streets that pick this up. You got to remember, the AI can recognize who you are by the gait of your walk. In the war in Afghanistan, we employed technology like that on the terrorists. The terrorists out there, you could track them. And there was many different ways they had available to track them. But you always knew where they were, and you even knew who they were associating with, everything else, because the algorithm put it all together. It's very much like Buffdale, Utah.
Hey, but
Same
don't worry
thing.
about it, Joe, because they're only using that on the terrorists, and they would never, ever, ever use that on
Speaking
their
of
own
that,
people.
Buffdale, Utah, right? So we have to
Right.
assume that, now remember, what we're told is we have a facility that does nothing but aggregate all electronic communication for 100 years. I mean, that's when it opened. That
I mean,
was its
it's
capacity.
logging this conversation right now. There's a copy
Okay,
of
so
this
what
being
if
piped
that's
into Buffdale.
what if that's an AI's brain? What if that's the AI's brain, right?
Maybe.
What if
Who
Buffalo,
knows?
Utah is like ground zero for AI? What if that is Skynet? Or that version of Skynet. I always thought it was because, first of all, no one knows really how that information is used. Really.
Right.
I'm sure it's got a myriad of uses, but like, how are they used? In what capacity? Is there an algorithm or algorithms that are utilizing that as its data set? And if you think about that, that's a
Right.
tremendous data set, dude. Oh, I mean,
Right.
that's
I mean,
like
we can
crazy.
we can already see what Chat GPT can do, and that's just an AI project from OpenAI, right? What
Yeah.
is the AI project that the military is working on, right? What is DARPA and a lot of these military industrial complex sort of entities and black project entities? What kind of algorithms do they have? What kind of AI systems are they utilizing?
Well,
And
you
what
get an
data
idea.
sets are, like you said, what data sets are they tapping into? Are they
You
just
get
getting
an
a raw
idea,
feed?
though.
Yeah,
We
get
can get
a
an
raw
idea
feed.
through academic papers.
Right.
So you go through the academic papers and you see what it is, Scotty, that the students are working on, because that really is it's typically a lot of that creativity comes when you get these old fogey professors who've been there and done that, and the new peeps that are trying to make a name for themselves, and you get them together and you read these peer-reviewed studies, and that's when we found things like you, me, and Kev sentient world simulation.
Right.
That's a staggering tool. Staggering tool. Think about that. Every human is a node. And you have basically an Earth within this simulation that has a node that you're represented on that has all that information basically about you, basically another you just in this world. And they can simulate everything, natural disasters. economic issues. They could do all sorts of stuff like that.
It's like the ultimate version of the game Civilization, but it's like on steroids.
On steroids. But think about that. How valuable of a tool would that be? You know? Think about how awesome people would take it to have a machine or an AI that could spit out, okay, this is how we do the deflect the meteor. You know, this is how we mitigate the pole shift issues, you know, that come about that. Maybe that already exists. Maybe that's why the billionaires are building their bunkers in the Ozarks and other places throughout the world. But what I can tell you is that technology typically isn't for us, which is why it blew me away that OpenAI had it out. That's typically not the way they do it. There was ex-CIA agent Robert Steele that many years ago did a great presentation about the importance of open sourcing to the world, basically, because if you don't, and you don't get that critical technology out there, it gets stifled. It gets stifled.
Right. And I've always been a huge advocate of open sourcing everything. You know, the open freedom of information should be available to everyone. You know,
so if you did that, right now, that's the other problem. If you did that, the root problem that you have is people don't work for free. So where does the money come from
right.
to do all that stuff, right? Because you're still on a money system. Your society's centered around it. That's the crisis that we have here. And we'll talk more about it in hour number 2, because that's what all of this stuff really is what we're barreling towards. We're barreling towards a crisis where technology is going to make human labor obsolete. And once human labor becomes obsolete, you have a tremendous issue on your hands, a humanitarian crisis of biblical proportions, more than even more now than the 3 billion people that are starving on the planet. You think it's bad now,
right? Because the system that's going to be in place at that time is not going to be able to sustain keeping all of the quote unquote bottom feeders afloat for that long.
And if you think about it, dude, even if you implement a system like that, you're going to have attrition, people that aren't going to want to participate, right? Those are like those outlanders, the barbarians, if you will, in 1984. The ones that didn't want to worship
the raiders that you come across outside the city walls, you know.
That's right. That's right.
Right.
You're going to have those people. Now, if you think about it, those people sound a lot like preppers today, only they were not depicted as such. They were depicted more as like cavemen, you know, in 1984, but really it'd be your preppers. Well, okay, so there's that, but then property's a thing of the past. There is no private property. That's all gone. It's all part of that collective, right? So the impetus now is to slow kill as many people as you can, so that when that transition comes along, it doesn't kill as many people. They don't have to kill as many. They'll sleep better at night. You know, the crematories won't have to work so hard and turn you into crackers. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's what's going to end up happening. Everybody's going to turn into Triscuits. And then they rewild everything. And you only have your population centers. You know? Yeah, the human zoos. If you think about it, and Brave New World, that's what it was. Brave New World was, they would go out and actually have like a safari. Crazy. Well, hour number 1's done. Hour number 2's on the way. Out of time here. We'll be right back. KGRADB.com.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are you looking to go on a faraway journey that is magical and mysterious, reaping on mystical legends? If so, then Mysterious Adventure Tours is perfect for you. Imagine a voyage to explore ancient mysteries of Ireland, haunted majesties of Scotland, or their chilling birth of the vampires in Romania. These small esoteric getaways are limited and do fill up fast. So, go to mysteriousadventuretours.com and book your trip soon.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected. Only at kgradb.com.
Well, we're back, everybody. Oh, yeah. KGRADB.com. She's up.
Pardon me.
Oh,
Sorry.
you all right there, Joe? Oh, man.
Had something in my throat. Yeah. So, hey, hour number 2, we're talking about this whole technocracy thing. Control freaks pushing us towards that end. You brought up a great point about EVs. You know, one of the things that we always saw, like America 2050, a lot of those Brave New World type stuff.
Right.
They want to restrict your ability to travel. So they want you to take, you know, all that happy electric stuff. Ain't that right?
Right. You know, you see this push now for, you know, for electric vehicles, and they're really forcing it. Right? You know, every other commercial that you see on TV is for an electric vehicle. They really want to get rid of, you know, gas powered vehicles, diesel powered vehicles, anything like that. And, you know, this is all part of forcing people into concentrated population centers, because it's very hard to set up an EV charging, you know, infrastructure whenever you have to cover vast distances, right? Like on highways that go for a very long time in very remote areas. It becomes very unsustainable to do something like that. They can't do it. And it's interesting because I don't know if you saw this, Joe, but Wyoming, I think, is going to introduce a bill to actually ban the sale of EVs in Wyoming until 2035. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to pass it or whatever, but their rationale is that Wyoming doesn't have the infrastructure to set up these charging stations all over Wyoming.
Well, no, of course they don't.
Right. Do people realize how remote and wild Wyoming is?
No, but you know what you could do? You could set up that really nasty one that has about the 10 billion mirrors around the one pole that goes up, and it all focuses it on that mirror that goes down and incinerates everything like instantly.
So
you could do that, and I would imagine you could get some energy. Right?
Oh yeah,
you could kill all the wildlife too, but you could get some energy.
Yeah, you could get some energy along with your Tesla death ray, but hey, you know, it's all good. But you know, this is part of the whole Agenda 21 or Agenda 35, whatever. They keep bumping the number, you know, as the agenda continues, you know, and
things slide to the right. Anybody in business knows most plans often slide to the right.
Right,
it's an eventuality that always occurs because there are unforeseen things that happen that you can't think of them all.
Right. And so you know, this whole push for EVs, you know, it's much easier for them to set up charging stations and all of that in a highly urbanized area, you know, a metropolis sort of zone where, hey, you know, I could just go down to the gas station where, not even a gas station anymore, but a charging station.
Somebody was a genius when they came out and said, okay, well, yeah, these EVs are so great. These solar panels are so great. Where do you get the stuff to produce them? And then you go look, and it's slave labor for $1 a day, and I mean, it's like the most horrid of conditions.
Have you seen the children digging cobalt out of the earth for you so you can drive your EV? You know, right?
No problem. Don't mind the radiation or anything else. It's all good. You know. By the way, yeah, a lot of cobalt is radioactive, so. Even in small doses, radiation is cumulative, but don't worry, it's okay. PPE, no, you're lucky if you have clothes, and that's what ends up happening, man. It's a slave type of system.
Oh, and Joe, let me ask you a question. Where do all of those lithium batteries go when they no longer work in the EVs? When they no longer hold a charge? And
that's a problem. That's the problem. I don't foresee us having a really good answer for that too. However, I did find a way that, and this is pretty interesting. Let me see if I can find it. It is, we'll drought for just a second. Yes. According to Science News, rare earth elements could be pulled from coal waste. Now, you know how everybody's been saying how coal is so bad. It's one of the main reasons why we have these atmospheric rivers, which, by the way, folks, let me be perfectly clear. We had atmospheric rivers before they had that term. And it didn't get created just because they came up with that word. They were deluges of rain before. We did things to cause them. They happened naturally. There was a myriad of different ways it happened, but atmospheric rivers were around well before the term came out. Also, named storms.
Well, I was just about to say, there's another term for the atmospheric river that they like to tout so much.
Yes.
It's called the Southern Jet Stream, something that has been around for I think as long as climate has existed on this planet. We've probably had a southern jet stream due to the Coriolis effect of the Earth rotating. So, yes, it's really nice when they like to rename things to make it seem like it's something new. Right.
Department of Defense, they just did it. Now they went to weather. And the same thing with the winter storms, right? Okay, look, East Coast didn't get any snow yet this year. We get it. I live on the East Coast. I know it. Not exactly, sad about that. Um, to me, that's like, oh boy, in a year when you have energy prices going out of control, and there's a worry that there could be shortages, especially up here in the Northeast, where we have to have all our natural gas shipped in by ship, American flagged ships that cost a premium, right? So it makes it very expensive to heat your home in the winter. So if it's not so cold, actually don't mind it a whole lot, because guess what? It ain't gonna not be cold forever, and we's going to get cold. And when we
Right.
do, we have an answer to that. And many of the European countries went to that, and that is coal, a natural type of heat or fuel that has been used for thousands of years. Humanity has used it so much so that I would imagine we would be dead long ago if coal was so bad, right? But there are ways, and this is like one of the interesting things. Rare earth elements could be pulled from coal waste. Absolutely. If you could go and extract something from a process that you're already doing anyway, of course, yes, do it. Now, all of a sudden, you have a way, or as researchers envision, turning toxic waste into treasure. The pollution left behind by abandoned mines is an untapped source of rare earth elements. Now, those are the 17 valuable elements or set of elements needed to make everything from smartphones to electric vehicles to fluorescent bulbs and even lasers. Now, global demand, of course, is skyrocketing. Why? Well, because we're making a lot more electronic shit. Straight up. That's just, and everybody
Isn't it
knows.
funny? Does anybody see the irony in all of this? Is that you would have to utilize quote unquote dirty energy to
Right.
end up producing quote unquote clean energy.
That's right. That's right.
So, it's like the question that was asked of a lot. They're like, well, the car's electric. Okay, well, how is the car being charged? Where is it getting its electricity from?
Yeah. No. It's clean all up until you have to freaking fuel it from somewhere else, right? Eventually,
Right.
there's something dirty behind something. If it ain't fusion, that's the only thing I can see. If everybody had a fusion drive, well, now that would be badass. That would be cool. Maybe one day we get there. If AI can solve that problem, probably will, right? But these rare earth elements, think about this. You could go in and take all of that nasty stuff, the byproducts of that mining, which is mining rare earth elements is extremely toxic. And that's why China owns 90% of the rare earth element mines, because of just that. It is a damn near monopoly because people don't want to do it because it's so destructive. But okay, we only have one active mine here in the United States, just so you know. In the entire United States, we have one active rare earth element mine. So it would behoove us to figure out a good way to, or create a workaround where we can capture these without screwing the environment up. So pulling rare earth elements from coal waste is a 2-for-1 deal, right? Because you're retrieving the metals, but you also help clean up the pollution. So now all of a sudden, this is kind of a good thing. And you have to understand, there was a lot of damage done during the coal mining years when it was really heavy. You're talking about strip mining, all sorts of nasty stuff. These coal mines closed. They left behind a dirty legacy. And when some of the rock left over from the mining is exposed to air and water, you get sulfuric acid, and then that pulls the heavy metals from the rock. So this acidic soup can pollute all the waterways. Sometimes you see it with the yellow, you'll see like that gold stream from time to time from a company that polluted the river from some form of mining. Well, that's what that is. So if you were able to recover the rare earth elements from that acidic mine drainage, now all of a sudden you're cleaning up the environment and capturing all this stuff. Now, it says from a few hundred sites already treating acid mine drainage, nearly 600 metric tons of rare earth elements and cobalt, another in-demand metal, could be produced annually. So that's pretty interesting. And that's just from the cleanup from what's already been done. But if you go back into production and you start mining it along with clean coal technology, now all of a sudden you've got a really cheap fuel that you're also getting fuel for your electric cars, or actually the ability to store fuel for your electric cars.
Right, your waste no longer is waste. Your waste
It's
is
not
now
waste, right.
it's an extra product. It's an extra
It's
product
brilliant.
you're producing, and
It's brilliant.
right. So
Absolutely.
you know,
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. But you have to understand, electric cars are not the answer. Electric cars are what are slowly kind of pushing us into the box, slowly but
Right.
surely. You know, there's so many different ways that they are looking to suppress population. If you look at the birth rates of all the first world countries, they're all below 2.0. All of them, every single one. Every single one cannot sustain its population strictly by birth rate, which is why they like to open the border up. It serves a lot of different purposes, but one of the main purposes is population. It keeps the population growing.
I also think for
And-
the first time, China, their population has not risen; it actually fell.
To the point
for the
where
first
they're
time,
concerned about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Japan is in a crisis where they're moving and relocating whole families to areas where they've had procreation problems so much for so long now, and their population is so aged.
Yeah, you have entire villages
to
in Japan
redistribute-
where
you have to
you have entire
redistribute your
villages
population.
where like the population is no younger than like 40. You know.
Okay, but do you do that? Do you do that, or do you just slowly close them down, squeeze them in, get them into the box, start to live that way? Maybe Japan's just ahead of the game. You know, I don't know, but it certainly looks that way. They don't want the population to grow. You know, they don't want that. However, it's a lot easier to manage if you haven't hit that point where technology can take over. You need that kind of labor to be able to keep an economy going. And that's the problem. Japan just don't have it. And they're really suffering for it now. Over in Thailand has billboards out asking people to procreate. It's like a national thing right now because the control freaks don't want the population to grow, but there are still people out there that don't get what the plan is and are trying to stop it in some way, shape, or form, and they just don't understand how this is going to end up. And there's nothing we can really do about it because all of that foundational stuff has already occurred to where this is kind of where we're being herded. Yes.
Mhm.
So interestingly enough, that's a problem. Now, you were talking earlier about investigations and how they always fizzle. Every time you start to get momentum
Right.
on something that could provoke unbelievable or positive change and kind of kick the control freaks in the stones, it always happens where they just go by the wayside, swept under the rug. So one of my biggest, I don't want to say heroes, but somebody I admire from the time that the money trust really was getting under the under the collar. People were getting hot under the collar about these rich monopolists that were controlling and basically stifling progress in society, all because of the power that they wielded. You know,
Mhm.
And Lindbergh wrote some pretty interesting books, but he was also extremely focused on the money trust and hated them because of what they stood for and what it meant to humanity, especially the United States, to the citizens of the United States. So Charles Lindbergh had some pretty interesting quotes. And I want to read some of them to you because he was pivotal in executing or starting a lot of these investigations that just fizzled out. So one of them was the Federal Reserve Act. And he said, this act establishes the most gigantic trust on earth. When the president signs this act, the invisible government by the money power, proven to exist by the money trust investigation, will be legalized. The money power overawes the legislative and executive forces of the nation and of the states. I have seen these forces exerted during the different stages of this bill. And he's absolutely right. He also said the new law will create inflation whenever the trust wants inflation. From now on, depressions will be scientifically created. He said that after the passage of the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. See, this is it. It's not that people didn't know what was going to happen. They knew. You just sweep it under the rug.
Look, people. These market crashes and these recessions and depressions and whatnot. These don't just come out of a vacuum, out of nowhere.
Right.
These are orchestrated and they're planned, right? And that was what, one of the main missions of establishing the Federal Reserve was all about, so that they could control the markets, they could control when booms and busts, occur, and they can, capitalize off of those booms and busts when they feel that it's necessary to do so, and so yeah, he's absolutely correct,
That's right.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the money trust investigations, this is a pretty interesting time. It's pretty volatile. At this time, we just got over the Spanish-American War, and we're just gearing up now in a couple of years to get involved in World War I. So that is extremely interesting. Now, the money trust investigation was really to take a look at the monetary conditions and how these rich people could affect markets, could affect trade, can affect everything. And Lindbergh Sr. was a huge proponent of those investigations. He continues to say the new law, of course, it said will create inflation whenever the trust wants inflation. It may not do so immediately, but the trusts want a period of inflation because all the stocks they hold have gone down. Now, if the trust can get another period of inflation, they figure they can unload the stocks on the people at high prices during the excitement and then bring on a panic and buy them back at low prices. The people may not know it immediately, but the day of reckoning is only a few years removed. And he said that a few years before the stock crash of 1929. He said it December 22nd, 1913.
I think what our good friend Lindbergh there was describing was what they refer to as a good old fashioned pump and dump.
That's exactly what it was, which was what they were supposed to avoid, but in turn actually made it systemic. And he also said under the Federal Reserve Act, panics are scientifically created. The present panic is the first scientific one, worked out as we figure a mathematical equation. So, and you hear that all the time, algorithms, things that these bankers use to gain a competitive advantage over each other. but also the concentration of power, which is not supposed to happen, but what happens all the time. So you had the money trust investigations. Then you had the next biggie, in my humble opinion, was the McCormick-Dickstein Committee. And the McCormick-Dickstein Committee had to do with the attempted coup on President Roosevelt. And that was an unbelievable time in our history. You had President Roosevelt that wanted to pack the court because he had a lot of his New Deal that was being deemed unconstitutional and couldn't put it into practice. So he's like, I'm going to pack the court. Well, a lot of your money trust, they went by a new name now, because you have to remember, by this time, a lot of the money trusts are getting really old, and or their families have taken over. But towards the end of their life, they kind of went on this philanthropic.
Right after Teddy Roosevelt, helped break them up and all. They had to rebrand themselves, I guess
Change
you could
face,
say,
right? And they did, right? So now they're called the endowments.
Mm-hmm.
But they're also incredibly what at that time was considered right wing. Almost to the point where instead of the threat of him packing the court, they said, well, we'll take the threat of that as being serious, and we want to install a fascist dictator to make sure that that never happens. So that's a huge event that you would think people would want to know about in their history books, but you'll never find it. You'll never find any word spoken of it. And the reason is the guy that this had a lot of different angles to it. But to make a long story short, we have a the most decorated Marine in our history gets pulled into it, who, by the way, was also the leader of the bonus army that marched on Washington, that MacArthur burnt down and used tanks and all of other things to shoo them out of Washington, when all they wanted was their bonus because they couldn't afford to eat during the Great Depression. All the World War I vets. So all these guys like the DuPonts, the Bushes, all of your endowment families, the rich money trust, go and say, hey, Smedley, through an intermediary, how about you be our fascist dictator? People like you. They gravitate to you. We just don't want this guy packing the court and turning us into a basically socialist dictatorship or, a communist state. Okay. So he plays along with it for a little while, but at the same time, he's backfeeding Congress everything that's going on. And eventually it comes out. And it starts the McCormick-Dickstein Committee, which investigates this. And boy, oh boy, did they find some whoppers of issues related with this. Even down to how it wasn't just in the United States that they were messing around. That, yes, they wanted to turn it into a fascist dictatorship, but they knew that they had limitations. And there were some things that they wanted to do that, oh, by the way, they couldn't do in the United States. So they had to outsource that kind of stuff in a way. So Mr. Warburg, a prominent banking individual, also at the his family very, very heavily influenced the Federal Reserve Act and was present at the Jekyll Island Conference, goes to Germany to take the helm of IG Farben, which is today Bayer Pharmaceuticals, and go and begin experiment exploitation type of, I mean, you want to talk about inhumane and eugenics gone wild. Well, that was one of the main reasons why Nazi Germany did what they did, was to advance the whole eugenics thing, to cleanse the gene pool, to show that it was possible. Almost like China now today being the beta test for AI.
And, you know, people need to realize, you know, the inspiration that who Germany took from. You know, this didn't just come out of a vacuum in Germany.
No.
To do all of these things. They looked to what was going on elsewhere, and they were like, "Hey, we really like that."
And it was happening here. Well, it was happening here, right?
And it was the American eugenics program that had been going on.
Right.
in the early 20th, you know, early 20th century,
early
you know,
20s,
starting kind of it. Yeah, you know, and Germany took inspiration from that, you know, so people need to realize that, you know.
Well, they not only took inspiration from it, they utilized the information.
They implemented it.
Right.
Right. Mm-hmm. They were inspired by it, and they acted upon it, and they kicked it into overdrive, you know. And,
right, because they couldn't do it here. So they had to prove that it was possible and do it somewhere else. So they did it somewhere else. They used Germany as their test bed, their beta test. Same playbook that they use today with China and AI. Managed society. In this case, they wanted to do it through genetics, with the ultimate goal of having your classes already predestined. Look, you're going to have a birthing crisis here soon within a generation, to where they're going to say, because remember, folks, sperm counts are dropping big time, 50% since the 1970s. Infertility is a major issue for a myriad of different reasons, all of which can't be solved lickety-split. But if you start engineering test tube babies, you know, now all of a sudden you start growing babies and maintaining population that way. And guess what? You're designed to be a street sweeper or whatever it ends up being. You have that engineered society. That's what they were gearing towards. They wanted to take the genetic route. And, you know, a la like 1984. Hence, you know, the only reason why it's called 1984 is because you wrote it in 1948 and just switched the two numbers. That's why it was 1984. But I get that. I get the point. So you have that, right? McCormick-Dickstein Committee finds like, oh, crap, the founder of the USO is a Nazi sympathizer. Gets all his assets seized by under the Trading with the Enemies Act. That's a problem when Prescott Bush, father of two, progeny of two presidents. I don't get it. Where's the history there? How come that was allowed to happen? And then, we can't have him go to jail, so we're just going to make the problem go away, right? Then you have the communist plot to take over the education system. Well, in the 50s, Representative Carol Reese found out about this and was really upset, and rightfully so. And so they get a special counsel to do an investigation into the endowments. And what they find is staggering. The Dodd report is available on Scribd. It's on archive.org. You can download it, read it. It's unbelievable. You will be astounded, even though you already know the contents of a lot of it, that it happened so long ago and nothing's been done about it. If anything, it's just been amplified. So you've got the church committee, right? Now you got another committee forming by the Republicans, which, what do they call it? Like Church 2.0 or something like that. They want a new committee. Do you honestly think anything's going to come of that? No. It'll be pomp and circumstance. You might get some nuggets of information that come out, but quite frankly, there's not going to be anything earth-shattering.
Right. It's just going to be another one of these things that just gets the public to, accept more corruption, because they're going to hear about it, but nothing's going to be done, so that's just another example of, hey, this is the way it is. This is the status quo. We might have a hearing on it. You'll hear a few things, and then business as usual afterwards.
No, that's absolutely right. And so what we have is a technocracy that is slowly but surely being put into place. People got their feet wet with crypto, and everybody was conditioned to readily accept it. And the private or quote anonymous private crypto, safe crypto, all that stuff will go away, and you'll have even safer ones that are backed up by the state. And if you use that electronic currency, well, by God, there'll be a lot of benefits for you to do that. Oh, and by the way, when we do transition over to that, we're going to give you 40 cents on the dollar for all of that. So all your retirement funds and all that, just wait for that. Wait for that.
That's why they've acclimated and conditioned the public to using credit cards and debit cards, right? Because you're not having to handle physical cash anymore. It's just swipe a card, get it scanned,
or even tippity tap it now, right?
Tippity tap it.
Now it's tippity tap it. Pretty soon it'll be boop 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 boop. Tippity tap your hand on it,
right?
Because you have a microchip.
As haven't you seen this increase lately? I've noticed this to where you hand cashiers or people working, hand them actual cash, and they can barely even count out the change because it's like they don't see cash anymore.
You don't have to anymore. Well, that's okay. That brings us to another thing to discuss. All of these advancements have come at the hands of it's been human hands and the human brain that have figured it out. Now all of a sudden you're going to have machines do everything, right? And there was just a study. Right here, study finds. Studyfinds.org. Ways leads to brain haze. It says, here's why using real maps instead of GPS could prevent dementia. Now, this is interesting. Do I think that it will prevent dementia? I doubt it. However, if you think about, for all of you that have a road atlas still, I have one.
Got one too.
That know how to use the legend, how the grid system works on maps, how to navigate using a map. I could definitely see how that could keep your brain sharper, right? Because it's analytical in nature.
It's the old adage, use it or lose it. So as long work your brain, it's always good for it. So
and they say that too. For people that retire, some people retire, they love it. There's other people that actually end up losing their cognitive abilities because they're not putting them to use, not the way they used to. So it ends up being really catastrophic for them. All because society says, well, here's retirement age. Doesn't mean you have to. Just means that's what it is. So McMaster University says orienteering, an outdoor sport that exercises the mind and body through navigation puzzles, can train the brain and stave off cognitive decline. The aim of orienteering is to navigate between checkpoints or controls marked on a special map. In competitive orienteering, the challenge is to complete the course in the quickest time. So for older adults, scientists say the sport, which sharpens navigational skills and memory, could become a useful intervention measure to fight off the slow decline related to dementia's onset. They believe the physical and cognitive demands of orienteering can stimulate parts of the brain our ancient ancestors used for hunting and gathering.
I was just about to say.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That this is something that humans have been engaged in for thousands of years, right? And this goes back. This goes back to what I was talking about, the rapid increase in technology which we've seen within the past 150 years. We've all of a sudden went from a species to where we had to use that navigation system, that orienteering, just on the basis of survival on a day-to-day
Right.
basis. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have, smartphones and Google Maps telling us where to go. We had to figure that out. And we had to use landmarks. We had to be able to recognize paths that we could take, when it comes to hunting and navigating and getting from one place to another. You had to memorize those skills, and you had to have that skill set. Now we're at a point to where we don't use that anymore. That's pretty much a whole
It becomes
facet
a
of
lost art
our.
almost.
Yeah. We ask anybody under the age of 40 now, probably. I don't know. To look at a map and be able to navigate you somewhere. They to them it's like looking at hieroglyphics, or they nobody uses a map anymore. Nobody understands
No.
how to navigate anything.
But now,
And
but now that comes at a cost, though, right? If you think about it, comes at a cost. I'm going to find that cost right here. Right here. 4 more studies confirm exposure to wireless tech, including cell phones and 5G, is harmful to humans. Yeah. See, NIH research says 5 minutes on a cell phone can cause significant memory impairment. Among other things, But this is important to highlight that even with this technology, yes, not only do you lose that capability, that you become dull, and then eventually over time you lose it, Scotty, but you also have the health effects associated with this technology. That either you find a new transmission system, or the more throughput, the more things you have on the Internet of Things, smart devices, cars, transportation networks, things like that, you're going to be saturating the airwaves, or the atmosphere, I should say, our environment, if you will, with 5G, 6G, 7G. Each time that wavelength gets tighter and tighter and shorter and shorter, and next thing you know, it's penetrating bones. It's going straight through you. Right now it only gets about a quarter inch into the skin, so they say. I think it does a little more. However, because it's cumulative over time, it may just begin that way, but it doesn't stay there a quarter inch. You end up absorbing all this stuff. That's a problem.
Right, and your body's made of 70% water, so I'm sure something is definitely going on there, and
But and I can tell you for a fact, being in an industry like that for a very long time, right? I was in the RF communication industry for 17 years, to the point where if I have a radio, like a 5-watt radio transceiver, and I key it, my joints ache, because I was around them for so long that I can feel the effects from it. That's when I started, and geez, that was almost 15 years ago that I did that. When I made that realization, and I started talking about it on the air, like, look, this stuff is not good, because we're holding a transceiver to our head. We're always trained, never hold a transceiver against your head. The military, they train you that, Same with radars, all those devices. They even have like an annual study where they come out and they actually paint radiation zones, around, and tell you what your safe zone is, or where the danger area is. So they've known this for a long time. The issue is, now that it's so widespread and so used, a lot of ailments that we may be dealing with can either be amplified or caused by 5G, by RF. And people don't, even if it's radio frequency, it's still radio frequency.
It's definitely not helping. I mean, nobody's getting any health benefit from it, so it can only be either it's doing nothing or it's harming people, and now that there's this push to concentrate everybody into high population centers, you're going to have denser populations being exposed to higher frequencies. And, if you live in one of these megapolis apartment complexes or whatever they decide to squeeze everyone in, it's you're just concentrating everyone to be exposed to all of this. And like I said, we don't know what the long-term effects of all of this is going to end up being. How does this all end up playing out? And
will it even matter? Will it even matter though?
Right.
You know why? I'm going to tell you why. Will it matter? Because the Russian Orthodox Church is issuing that end of the world warning. They're saying, guess what, dudes? Nobody's destroyed Russia before. The head of the Orthodox Church has warned that any attempt to destroy Russia by madmen trying to impose their values will lead to the end of the world. So I guess 5G doesn't matter, or Chat GPT, because we're all going to die and get radiated. So if you're lucky,
dudes,
you'll be vaporized instantly or die by a 10,000-foot tidal wave because of their 100 megaton autonomous torpedo.
Those Orthodox Russian priests are pretty hardcore. Have you ever seen the pictures of them? Have you ever seen the pictures of them like throwing holy water on AK-47s and like RPGs and blessing the weapons? I'm like, dang, dude, they're all about it, I guess. So it doesn't surprise me that they would.
History doesn't show that though. See, that's the problem about Russia. Is it's not exactly. They're not. Nobody on the face of this earth is undefeated, but I get it. There's only when a country has nuclear weapons, right? They technically can't lose. You can have two losers, but they can't lose because especially
you're in a perpetual stalemate at that point.
You've got mutually assured destruction. So you've always got that as your ace in the hole. It's just what's your red line? Well, and I guess the Russian Orthodox Church is saying, yeah, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah, but I would like to go back to the time, the peoples who inhabited the Russian area at the time of Genghis Khan, and I think they would beg to differ about Russia losing anything, right? It's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of perspective of what they declare of Russia never being defeated.
They don't have Kamala.
Where do they draw that line up?
We got Kamala, right?
Yeah, right.
And all I can say is we got Kamala Harris as our ace in the hole. So we don't need nukes or anything like that, right? We got Kamala.
Hey,
now, and I understand. I get it. I get their problems. I get their issues.
Right.
The history, the whole nut. I get it. But Russia is not undefeated. It's just not happening. No. That's another thing too, by the way. One of these days we can get into the mud floods and also what Russia used to be called. Because there was a whole country there that was just wiped off every map. That is very interesting. And it was like on 19th century maps too. What the heck was the name of it? What did they call it? Tartaria? Is that what it was?
Yeah, something like that.
Tartarus. Anyway, they were
Tartaria,
Tartar.
I think it was. Yeah,
and so they were Tartars. And it was like a huge country. And then all of a sudden, gone. Nothing. No one knows of anything today. It's always been Russia. I've always known it as Russia. When I saw that, I was like, get out. How do you erase a whole country, a whole people for that matter? How do you do that? They did it, but I don't know how they did it. Independent media, we know firsthand how censorship works, how collusion between social media platforms work to stifle your reach. We know all that kind of stuff, right? But we also know how Google and other corporate entities utilized easy money to lure unsuspecting, vulnerable, independent media outlets and freelance journalists in, only to have the legs cut out from under them when they take the monetization away and all that when you've been a bad boy. You know, like ring the bell, go here, get a treat. Ring the bell, go here, get a treat. Eventually you get conditioned on what to say and what not to say. And Vice, at one point in time, was one of those independent media outlets that kind of broke free, started in Canada, kind of punkish, and expanded over the course of 20, 30 years. They became pretty big and influential. Well, Vice is going to be laying off, and they've been put up for sale. But even worse, as Zero Hedge reports, go woke, get broke. Fox fires 7% of staff. Vice's valuation plunges. So as they start to go down this road of wokeism, of all that stuff, it just ends up being disastrous for these people. And it's terrible. It's terrible to see so many people and their jobs and lives affected. But all I can say is we went through it years ago. And it's terrible. It says here it's terrible time for American. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and Vice used to be one of these really good independent, sources of information back in the day, and then all of a sudden they started, like you said, that money started coming in, the influence started coming in, and next thing you know, they're not so independent, they're not so, it's unbiased, and they've ended up going down that, radical leftist, woke sort of trajectory, and that's where we're at now.
What were we called back in the day, right? We were called, we're right-wing extremists. We ain't wing anything, right? But that's the label that you get. We're right-wing. This is right-wing media. If you can imagine,
if you really want to take it back even further, what were they calling us during the George Bush administration? We were radical left wing anti-war nut jobs because we. Oh, that's
right. But we were left wing then, right? But then we were right. Now we're left. Yeah, right. So anyway,
exactly.
This is what ends up happening: is that eventually everybody ends up having a run, and then it's done. Because you outlive your usefulness, we'll put it this way. Now, these media outlets, listen to this. It's a terrible time for American liberal media, with companies laying off, implementing hiring freezes, and other cost-cutting measures. Now, like ChatGPT writing all your articles, or other chat bots, and there's plenty of them out there. But some media companies have even collapsed in valuation. They're blaming the macroeconomic uncertainty that have crushed advertising revenues. So layoffs have occurred where? CNN, BuzzFeed, Paramount Global, the Walt Disney Company, Comcast, Roku, Morning Brew, Gannett, and that's a company that owns USA Today. But there's a lot more smaller ones. And Vox Media, which owns like The Verge and New York Magazine and SB Nation, they're laying off. Axios is going to reduce their headcount by 7%. It's not a good time. Vice Media, up for sale again. They want around $1 billion, but they're not going to get anything close to it. They were valued in 2017 at $5.7 billion. That's amazing. Wow. Just collapsed. Why? There's a problem. People don't want to watch crap. They don't. You can try and force this stuff down people's throats, but I got to tell you, it doesn't work.
And people don't like being morally lectured and told that they're bad and evil on a daily basis, right?
But it's even more than that. You look at the rat race people have to run now. Cost of living crisis, all that. Who has time for that crap? I don't have time for that crap. Do you have time for that crap? We have time on Saturday nights, but that's really all the time we've got because the rest of our time is trying to make ends meet, and running a rat race. So I don't have as much time as I'd like to watch all that content or do that. Now, like CNN and companies like that are in the pockets of big pharma, and big pharma has propped up a lot of these independent, or I should say, mainstream media outlets for a long time. Hence the reason why big pharma's got so big. But even people are getting, they're getting hip to that,
Right.
and they don't like it.
Hence the reason why every other commercial is for some magical new pill for whatever
cure,
for
snake
whatever
oil.
thing
It's
you might have going on, And what
It's
commercial
terrible.
comes on after that? The EV commercial. So hey, 2-for-1 special. You get your pharmaceutical pills
think
and your
about
electric
that.
vehicles.
What's the difference between that and the covered wagons in the 19th century of people selling the tonics and all that other crap? It's the same crap, dude. They're just doing it. It's the 21st century version. The issue that I have too, think about this. When you start down the road of machine learning, what is there to stop the researchers, medical researchers, doctors, all of you? You're all under threat. They have machines now that can do certain surgeries. When is it gonna stop? Of course it's not gonna stop. It's gonna be the answer to everything. And we are gonna live in a technocracy that redirects people because cost of living crisis are going to have a solution. What's the solution? No more money except for the state issued credits on your, whatever. And everything's tracked. We'll give you everything you need. We'll give you entertainment. We'll give you this. We'll give you that. But you're going to have a purpose in society. You will fulfill it. This is what you're going to do. This is your role. And you go and execute. That's it. And you're an automaton. And over time, people stop. Watch. It'll be, well, we have the answer to infertility. No problem. We'll just start having test tube or however they do it. They grow it. Hell, they may even print them. Who knows? But I'll tell you this. And now they're talking about all these anti-aging drugs. What happens then? First of all, they'll be priced out of your and me, our price range. But now all of a sudden you're going to have people doing that and together, it's kind of counterproductive to the whole kill everybody thing. And we're out of time. Oh boy, out of time. 2 hours come and gone, Scotty, and we could have gone for a long time. Sooner or later,
good
folks,
one.
Sooner or later, Frankenstein's going to be coming back on the air, and when he does, I'm sure that he will have plenty of things. I'm talking about Popeye, of course. He'll have plenty of things and stories to tell you about all the fun and excitement he's had for so long. So thank you for listening. We'll see you all next Saturday. KGRADB.com. Have a great weekend.
Adios.